Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Fullerton. I'm Megan Smock, your worship associate today, and I have to say it's so great to be back with you. I get rid of the erector set on Tuesday. UUCF acknowledges that this land is situated in the original ancestral homelands of the Ahachiman, Kizh, and Tongva peoples. May we have the humility and courage to help restore what has been broken. Maybe it's the rod. And the wisdom to live into a new solidarity with indigenous communities and the earth. We are an inclusive congregation dedicated to building a better world. Whoever you are, however you identify, whether you join us in person or online, you are welcome here. Before we begin our service, I'd like to call your attention to a few announcements. We are welcoming our new minister, Robert Blair, today. We hope you can stay after the service to introduce yourself. Our guided meditation class will be led today by Mark Peru. It meets at 1 p.m. in the choir room. This Saturday is the Family Circle Supper hosted by Carter Rakowski. RSVP using the links found in the online newsletter. February 22nd is the first of 3 Zoom meetings exploring the end-of-life journey, facilitated by Karen Anderson. You can sign up at uufullerton.org/journey. We have a new way of sharing your questions and concerns with the board. Send all inquiries to uufullerton.org. And now, Mark Umbriaco would like to introduce our new minister.
Hi, everyone. Good morning and happy Super Bowl Sunday. Today is our first day with Robert, and to commemorate this day, our good friend, Reverend Mandy, will say a few opening words. I just want to remind everyone this is a good opportunity to wear your name tag so that Robert knows who you are. And I think that I'd like to just encourage everyone to embrace this journey together, and let us all welcome Robert to UUCF. Thank you.
We'll be sharing joys and sorrows a little bit later in the service. So if you're in the sanctuary and you'd like to share, the slips are located on the back table, and you can fill them out up to the end of Time for All Ages. I invite you to post your joy or sorrow in the comments section or the chat section of Zoom and Facebook. I am monitoring them. Those of you in the sanctuary are now welcome to take a moment to greet one another. You're welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. So we're going to be singing one of our favorite upbeat UU songs of welcome, and I want you to sing it with lots of joy because we have lots of joy to spare today. So stand if you're willing and able, and join me in singing 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. The day will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. There's one more. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Let it never be said that we don't do spontaneity well. I forgot. Sorry about that. Okay. We call forth this life of our faith by igniting our chalice. Oh, and I invite Pastor Rob to light the chalice. This spark of new beginnings invites us into a sacred space to reflect where we have been and where we are going, even knowing that this particular flame will intentionally end our ritual. Oops. For we know that with brave hearts from every ending of our lives, we're set forth to make a new beginning. Please join me for the affirmation on the screens. Please join with me in saying, this flame affirms the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. Love is the doctrine that we share. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need. Thus do we covenant with one another. It is our custom to collect items for donation to Pathways of Hope, a local agency which provides assistance to people in need. So I now invite the children to come forward for Time for All Ages and to collect those donations and bring them forward.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. Good, 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 good. Good morning. Hey, that worked out perfect. Good morning, everyone. My name is Megan Watson. I am the teen coordinator here at UUCF. And I have a story for us today because there is a holiday coming up. Does anyone know what holiday is on Friday? What is it? Oh, yeah. Hey, some of us have tomorrow off from school because of President's Day, because of Mr. Lincoln's birthday. But it's a different holiday on Friday. What is it, Josie? It is Valentine's Day on Friday. So our story for today is Valentine's themed, and the teens will be actually creating some Valentines to send to our legislators to maybe ask them to show a little bit of love. Suggest you all do that as well if you feel the urge. But our story today is called Somebody Loves You, Mr. Hatch by Eileen Spinelli. Mr. Hatch was tall and thin and did not smile. Every morning at 6:30 sharp, he would leave his brick house and walk 8 blocks to the shoelace factory where he worked. At lunchtime, he would sit alone in a corner, eat his cheese and mustard sandwich, and drink a cup of coffee. After work, he would make 2 stops, at the newsstand to get the paper and at the grocery store to buy a fresh turkey wing for his supper. After supper, he read the paper, took a shower, and went to bed early. He keeps to himself. That is what everyone said about Mr. Hatch. One Saturday, when Mr. Hatch stepped onto the porch with his dustpan and broom, he got a surprise, a package wrapped in brown paper. He had never spoken to the postman before. "Thank you, Mr. Goober," he said. Mr. Goober smiled. "You're welcome. I always enjoy delivering packages." Mr. Hatch tore the brown paper off. Inside was a white box, which he opened to find another box. This one was heart-shaped, all satiny red with a pink bow on top. It was filled with candy. Something fluttered to the porch floor. It was a little white card. He picked it up. It said, "Somebody loves you." Only then did he remember it was Valentine's Day. Mr. Hatch wondered and wondered. Now who would send me this? He was all alone. He had no friends. And yet someone had sent him a Valentine. Who? Why, I've got a secret admirer, he thought. And then he did something he'd never done before. He laughed. He laughed and danced and clapped his hands, and then he took a piece of candy from the box and ate it. He decided to go for a walk. Maybe, he thought, I will meet the person who sent me the candy. No one had ever seen Mr. Hatch smiling before, so he got a lot of attention. Mrs. Weed tripped over her dog. Mr. Dunwoody nearly fell off his ladder, and little Tina Finn spilled all the toys out of her wagon. Mr. Hatch waved hello to them all. On Monday at lunchtime, Mr. Hatch sat in the middle of the cafeteria and spoke to everyone and passed out chocolates from his heart box. That night, he baked brownies to bring to work the next day, but the smell of his brownies brought several curious neighborhood children nearby, and Mr. Hatch invited their families to enjoy the brownies with him. It turned into a picnic in his backyard with lemonade, dancing, and lots of laughing. And so the days and weeks went by. When Mr. Hatch wasn't smiling, he was laughing. And when he wasn't laughing, he was helping someone. And when he wasn't helping someone, he was having a party in his yard or on his porch. He seemed to have forgotten about finding the person who sent him the Valentine. Then one day, Mr. Goober the postman came to his door. His face was very serious. "Come in, Mr. Goober," said Mr. Hatch. "You look upset." "I am upset," he said. "I made a mistake some time ago, and my supervisor is very angry at me. Do you recall the package I delivered to you? On Valentine's Day, I think it was." "I believe so," said Mr. Hatch, beginning to feel a little uneasy. "I delivered it to the wrong house. You don't happen to still have it, do you?" "Well, I don't have the chocolates, but I still have the box and the card," Mr. Hatch said. He gave Mr. Goober the red heart box and the white card with the words, "Somebody loves you" on it. Sadly, he said, "I hope your supervisor won't be too angry with you now." The next day, Mr. Hatch got up at 6:30 and walked to the shoelace factory, but he did not smile. He ate his sandwich alone in the corner, and he did not speak when he bought his paper or his turkey wing. Everyone whispered, "What's wrong with Mr. Hatch?" Mr. Goober, the postman, told them what had happened. We love Mr. Hatch, insisted Mr. and Mrs. Dunwoody. He gave us flowers for our garden. He helped mend our back fence. Mrs. Weed nodded. I love him too. He saved bones for my dog, Ruffy. Ruffy barked. She loved Mr. Hatch too. Mr. Smith told everyone how Mr. Hatch had watched the newsstand so that he could visit the doctor. The neighborhood children remembered Mr. Hatch's brownies and lemonade, and most of all, his laughter. Poor Mr. Hatch, what can we do? Then Mr. Goober announced, I have an idea. That Saturday morning, Mr. Hatch stepped onto his porch with his dustpan and broom, and he couldn't believe his eyes. The porch was covered with hearts and streamers and boxes of candy. The front yard was filled with people, and they were holding up a huge sign with hand-painted letters that said, Everybody loves Mr. Hatch. Mr. Hatch dabbed a handkerchief to his eye and said, I do believe that somebody loves me after all. Then he smiled, and then he laughed, and then he hurried down to be with his friends. The end. All right, let's go to our classes.
Go with wisdom, go with wonder, go to create a brand new day. Learn to see the light within you as we set you on. Go with wonder, go to create a brand new day. Learn to see the light within you as we set you on your way.
Those joining us online are invited to share in all caps a joy or sorrow in the comments section. We begin by lighting a candle for all our concerns in the larger world. Our wish for peace and justice, our hopes for the children who will inherit this planet. May this candle represent all those wishes and calls to action that are more than we can articulate in this space. And now let us share the personal joys and sorrows of our lives. Are there any slips? All right. From Mary Botts. For all the children afraid to go to school and the parents afraid to send them, a true sorrow. From Mark Peru. For my students and all students living in fear because of their immigration status. From Aaron, a sorrow. My cousin's wife is on hospice, and they're preparing for her passing. And from Chance, Colleen, and Mary Jane, a concern. Our dear family friend Pat fell and broke her hip. She's at Terrace View now, recovering. Please send healing thoughts her way. Let me just check online. From Joyceline Shiramoto, we have a joy. My son successfully recovering from his heart attack. Linda Lilybridge says, Happy Sunday, everyone. And now let me check. One more. Okay. Rose London says, hello, church family, and welcome, Reverend Rob. Doris Dressler Clark, hello, my friend UU's from Portland. Good to see you. And Ralph Margolin, my friend Margaret has been in the hospital for 2 weeks. She has improved, but she had a difficult day yesterday. Oh. And of course, it wouldn't be the special day without lighting a candle for our new minister, Reverend Robert Blair. Randy Cox sent a joy. After 2 years of waiting, I now have a downstairs apartment at my apartment complex. This will be easier on my knees. Oh boy, can I relate to that. We now light one more candle for all those joys and concerns and sorrows that remain unexpressed but are still held close to our hearts. Now, please join me in saying the affirmation on the screen. We join you in celebrating your joys. May you feel our love and compassion
For
sorrows and concerns,
for all that is spoken
and unspoken. Sustain us all.
Well, in honor of Valentine's Day, we'd like to do one of our favorite love songs.
There were bells on a hill, but I never heard them ringing. No, I never heard them at all, till there was you, till there was you. There were birds in the sky, but I never saw them winging. No, I never saw them at all, till there was you, till there was you, and there was music, and there were wonderful roses, they tell me, in sweet, fragrant meadows of dawn and dew. There was love all around, but I never heard it singing. No, I never heard it at all, till there was you.
Let us move into a spirit of meditation, reflection, and prayer. You may close your eyes, take a deep breath, whatever helps you find your center. Blackmail, blacklist, black mark, black Monday, black mood, black-hearted, black plague, black mass, black market. Good guys wear white. Bad guys wear black. We fear black cats and the dark continent, but it's okay to tell a white lie. Lily white hands are coveted. It's great to be pure as the driven snow. Angels and brides wear white. Devil's food cake is chocolate. Angel food cake is white. We shape language, and we are shaped by it. In our culture, white is esteemed. It is heavenly, sunlight, clean, pure, immaculate, innocent, and beautiful. At the same time, black is evil, wicked, gloomy, depressing, angry, sullen. Ascribing negative and positive values to black and white enhances the institutionalization of this culture's racism. Let us acknowledge the negative connotations of whiteness. White things can be soft, vulnerable, pallid, and ashen. Light can be blinding, bleaching, enervating. Conversely, we must acknowledge that darkness has a redemptive character, that in darkness there is power and beauty. The dark nurtured and protected us before our birth. Welcome darkness. Don't be afraid of it or deny it. Darkness brings relief from the blinding sun, from the scorching heat and exhausting labor. Night signals permission to rest, to be with our loved ones, to conceive new life, to search our hearts, to remember our dreams. The dark of winter is a time of hibernation. Seeds grow in the dark, fertile earth. The words black and dark don't need to be destroyed or ignored, only balanced and reclaimed in their wholeness. The words white and light don't need to be destroyed or ignored, only balanced and reclaimed in their wholeness. Imagine a world that had only light or dark. We need both, dark and light, light and dark. I'd now like to invite Reverend Mandy Yates to come up and say a few words.
Hey there, friends. It's always good to be with you all. I have the honor of introducing to you my good friend, Rob. Rob comes from good people, as my Kentucky family would say. He has Indiana and Kentucky roots. Rob has a kind heart. He's always about helping others, whether through pastoral counseling, leading worship services, or creating online community. He's also deeply passionate about racial justice and supporting those who are dealing with grief or crises. Rob has an impressive educational background with a master's in divinity from Claremont School of Theology, focusing on pastoral counseling, and a BFA in broadcast journalism from good old Chapman University. He's been involved in a variety of community organizations, including All People's Community Center in LA and St. Joseph Hospital, offering spiritual support in times of need. When he's not pastoring and leading congregations, Rob also teaches at the California School of the Arts and has worked with youth and adults on spiritual growth. He's a compassionate and dedicated friend with a heart for service, and he's always ready to lend a hand or just have a meaningful conversation. Would you please join me in giving a warm welcome to my good friend, Reverend Rob Blair.
Good afternoon. Not used to saying that. It's 12:03. It's so good to be with you. I wanted to give you an idea of where I come from. And that starts back when I was 5 years old. I had it all figured out, as we all do at 5 years old. I was going to be a radio disc jockey and a TV weather and news anchor. By 14, I was actually interning at the top 40 radio station in Indianapolis. By 18, I was the #1 rated nighttime DJ at the same place where I started as an intern. At 22, while attending Chapman University, I got hired on the radio. My dream job of being on the radio in Los Angeles. Going to school during the week and on the air during the weekend. Then after a rapid radio career, my television career went faster. Palm Springs, Monterey, Chico, Redding, California, and then the big time as a weather forecaster in Las Vegas. I had a new apartment with brand new furniture and a balcony looking over the lights of Sin City. It was like a dream. Bright lights, big city, and a very fast life. I'd only been in Vegas for 3 months when it happened. The weekend on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, that weekend, I was giving the weather forecast during one of those cut-ins, that you see during Good Morning America. It was a taped cut-in. It wasn't live. One that would run throughout the morning. And during that extended forecast, I would stumble over the name of a man who I respected, who fought for those in the margins, who gave his life for the right of every human being to be treated equally. That weekend, I stumbled over Martin Luther King Jr.'s name, saying, "It's going to be sunny this Martin Luther King weekend." Out of more than a dozen people at the station who heard it as part of the taped cut-in, the producers, directors, no one caught that stumble. I didn't even hear it. I vaguely remember having stumbled, but those 2 seconds, that one stumble would change my life. It would never be the same. Complaints came in. Word across the city was that the new weatherman had used a racist slur, short for raccoon, with King Jr., against Martin Luther King Jr. Having been born in the 70s, I wasn't even familiar with that word, that heinous word. The station went into panic mode. I stumbled over a word, and now I had networks calling my house. I was the story that weekend. Here's the thing, the station would not release the tape, so many hadn't heard what I said directly. All the TV stations, newspapers, and internet reported the story as if I had said it outright. I was told by my employer, the station, to not come to work the next day. Then there was silence. I heard nothing for 24 hours. I sat staring at the wall, on the phone with family and friends as a virtual hurricane ripped through my life. I don't know about you when bad things have happened, but when you doze off, you wake up jumping as if it were a nightmare, but the nightmare was worse than I could dream at that point. Monday morning, Dr. King Day. Still no word from the station, but I opened up my door to get the newspaper and saw the front page. Racist weatherman fired. There had been some leaks in the media of the tape by that time. The Howard Stern show played it. And Howard and Robin took up for me saying the guy made a mistake, he stumbled. Howard was the only one to release and play the leaked tape. No one else in the media was interested in the fact that I stumbled and tripped over the word. No, racist weatherman sounded so much juicier. My friend, a former San Francisco news anchor and the public information officer in San Francisco for BART. Y'all know BART? The Bay Area Rapid Transit. A black man named Linton Johnson flew down to Vegas to try and clear things up. In his press conference, he said, Rob's only been here for 3 months. He's worked nonstop for charities throughout his broadcast career. Why can't you judge what he's done in his life? While Linton was out fighting for me, I barricaded myself in my room, pretty much catatonic. And as my friend Linton ran down the list of how I led my life, born into a faith-filled family, I went on mission trips to Jamaica, active in helping marginalized and oppressed populations. I was openly gay and active in organizations protecting LGBTQ plus youth. Press didn't want to hear that part because it wasn't scandalous enough. The tape, why play it? It could have been used as a tool, a teachable lesson, but would it get the ratings? Linton came back to my apartment and even he broke down. He said they wouldn't listen. The media didn't listen because it wasn't juicy enough. Once people heard what I reportedly said, the damage was done. That historically vile word would cause pain once again for the African American community. Over the next few days, while in my own grief, I learned more about the Black community's painful history in Las Vegas. The city of Las Vegas had a history of systemic racism that inflicted horrible pain on African Americans that past century. I mean, you may remember Sammy Davis Jr. able to perform at the ritzy hotels on the biggest stages, but not able to stay where he performed. He was a star. Those in the lower classes suffered greater tolls for decades with no healing. As time passed, it became crystal clear to me that this incident brought up, and rightfully so, brought out the painful memories of the past, the reprehensible and offensive way those in the margins, specifically the African American community, had been feeling. And although I did stumble over Dr. King's name, those who either heard it on TV or worse, heard the story, were injured again and again and again, and there was no denying their pain and their trauma. The next 2 weeks, I sold all my furniture, left Las Vegas with 3 suitcases and a television. I drove from Vegas to Kentucky by myself, in silence, numb, exhausted, and scared. When I got to my 2 homes, my mom and stepdad in Indiana and my dad and stepmom in Kentucky, I finally collapsed. My families took care of me, putting me to bed for weeks like I had been in some kind of horrible car accident. I didn't want to live, and I didn't want to die. After a couple of months, I decided to get out of my bed and my head and do something, so I got out of the country and flew to Costa Rica. I was familiar with the area because of a previous vacation, and I lived in the capital city of San Jose, Costa Rica. For 4 months, I lived there, worked on my Spanish, and worked for an LGBTQ nonprofit organization educating the population about HIV and AIDS. This during a time when they were trying to fight a crisis where legal prostitution and AIDS together caused a wave of infections and deaths. It was 2006. And treatments were not abundant in Central America. During my time there, I journaled a lot. I was just looking at some of the journals. It's really interesting to look back at our journals, isn't it? September 13th, 2006, here's an excerpt. I come down here, I try to help, but I feel like I've run away from my life. 3,000 miles away in the city of San Jose, Costa Rica, alone. I didn't want to live, but I didn't want to die. Journal entry, September 14th, the next day, quote, I had a dream with some clay pots. They had cracks all over them. There were some beams of light shooting from inside the pots, outside, like there were candles inside the pots. I continued to have this dream over and over. As I made my way back home to the United States, I told my family that it was time to start a life, and the only place I really wanted to go back was to LA in Orange County. I got a little studio apartment down on Chapman and Harbor in Anaheim, hoping I could find some kind of job that would just support me. I was overcome with fear. What do I put on my resume? How would I explain Vegas if it came up? If there was a worst case possibility in my future, my brain acted as if this worst case scenario would happen. Trauma. After months of sending resumes and my savings account dwindling, I got a call, a good job offer for an executive assistant position. On that Friday, I went out to the club and celebrated. And the next night, I would meet the one who I knew was going to be my soulmate, my best friend, Michael. He's here. He's the tall one. You'll get to meet him. What a weekend. Wow. Then after Michael and I had our first date and said goodnight, fear again. I thought he's going to find out my secret and run screaming. So that second night, I sat him down and I told him my story and I said, now I understand this is a lot of drama and you can run away now, but I just rather you leave me now if this is too much. If it's just too much to go out with damaged goods. He turned to me and said, we're all damaged goods. That's when things started to shift. My perception of myself, my perception of love, and that I could have a life worth living. You see, that night I figured if this Michael was willing to open his heart and show that much grace and concern and love, if my parents who brought me into this world could open their homes to me and love me through all of this, that maybe I had worth, that I had value, a spark within my soul, an understanding of the song, This Little Light of Mine. At that point, it wasn't a light, it was a spark, but it kept me alive. It gave me hope. Remember that clay pot with the cracks in it? Remember me having that dream of light in the cracked pot? I finally was understanding. The clay pot was me. Yes, imperfect, scarred, and broken, but those cracks allowed light to shine. Shine from the outside in, yes. But remembering specifically in my dreams, the light shone through those cracks from the inside out. That is a testament that the darkness isn't always bad, like the reading we heard from before. That out of the darkness, love and grace and mercy and forgiveness can miraculously transform a picture of brokenness and bleakness into wholeness and beauty, and that there is light within a cracked vessel. There is light in you and me. You can't beat California sunsets on clear days, but it's those California sunsets where the sun has to break through those clouds. Those that bring the purples and the pinks, the ones with the brightest colors, are the most unforgettable. Just like the amazing light of the Spirit that broke through the cracks in my clay pot in my dreams. I was gaining my strength back, and my own story about hope and tenacity and overcoming, a story that could actually help others in their pain. And this is where my heart for ministry was born. It would be years until I would go to seminary. I make the joke that the call kept coming and kept coming and kept coming, and in 2014, I finally picked up the line. And I applied to Claremont School of Theology, where I was awarded the year's presidential scholarship. And that's really the first miracle, because without That money, because y'all, seminary is expensive. Without that money, seminary was a no-go. Then, in my second year of seminary, the denomination in which I am ordained, like Reverend Mandy, is the Disciples of Christ. They were looking for someone to do a documentary on an African-American minister in our Southwest region who had faced a history filled with racism and misogyny. Reverend Charlotte Harris is her name. The region knew my talents, but not about my history in Vegas, and they asked me to produce this documentary, me being asked to executive produce, write, and host a documentary on anti-racism. I mean, I never hid my story about Vegas. I mean, it was out everywhere. I mean, I even preached on it during my ministry internship at First Christian Orange down the street. So I didn't know at the time who knew and who didn't know. I just jumped at the opportunity when they asked. This was an opportunity for healing, to transform the trauma of Vegas into purpose and making a difference. I felt the divine love in that timing and opportunity. Fast forward 2 years later, before I was ordained in the church, a historic, well-known South Los Angeles church, wonderfully diverse, named All People's Christian Church, asked me to fill in and preach one Sunday, and then soon after, they asked me, a white gay guy, to be their senior minister. I served that church for 7 years until last Sunday. I didn't want to live. I'm so glad that I didn't die. The story I have shared is an important chapter in my life and the beginning of my path in ministry after a storm that left me without a home and a job, but also an event that heightened my own awareness of systemic racism and the trauma inflicted on African Americans past and present. Things started changing with that dream about a cracked vessel, a light, a spark in the dark. That dream, a recognition, a realization led to the first footsteps of getting out of my bed, literally getting out of my bed. And the footsteps that followed. All of us, you and you and you, have that light inside. All of us, yes, cracked and crumbled and scorched and scarred, have that spark. And yes, we are living in some really scary times, but right now is the time for each of us, for you to remember that light within, the tenacity of the human spirit, the love for community and justice that brings you to be part of this community. Today is the first day of this new chapter for me. A new chapter, really, for this church. We are faced with difficult and divisive times, but there is hope. With love and grace and mercy and intention and conviction, there is hope in knowing our pain can be turned into purpose. There is hope in understanding our privilege and using it to serve the oppressed and marginalized. My story is not one where I suffered in vain. My story carries a lesson and a message. There have been times I haven't wanted to tell this story. There have been times I've not wanted to let my light shine. But our stories They matter. You have a story to tell and a light to shine as well. And now is the time to recognize the light in ourselves and the light within others. Now is the time to share and listen to each other's stories, sharing our suffering. Sharing our suffering brings about a vulnerability and depth of relationship that we don't see or experience when everything is smooth or uneventful. That is the hope. That is the hope, that out of our suffering comes deeper and more meaningful relationships and meaningful lives within our community. I hope that this story can stir and fill hearts. Now is the invitation and reminder to you. You have a light and you have a story. One that can inform and transform, and I encourage you to tell it. I encourage you also to ask others about their stories, because this process of understanding your own light while observing the light in others not only builds communities, but it strengthens them, it deepens them. I'm so grateful to tell my story, and I'm so grateful for you to listen to it this first Sunday. And I can't wait to hear your stories in the near future as we write this new chapter of a deeper community together. Blessed be.
The offering we take each Sunday is an opportunity to recommit to this place and to these people. It is as much a ritual as singing together, lighting our chalice, or reciting our unison affirmation. It is a reminder that form of love we call generosity. It is how we show that we believe it is important to worship together, to help our community, and to say yes to the values of our faith.
Today is a traditional African-American song, spiritual. In the late 50s and 60s, such songs such as We Shall Overcome, Keep Your Eyes on the Prize, and Do What the Spirit Says Do were sung at virtually every mass meeting, demonstration, and planning session of civil rights activists. They were sung on the freedom rides, during the marches, and in the jail cells of the South. Movement activists have commented frequently and eloquently on the ways that singing and songs gave them strength and a sense of self. And I now invite you to stand if you're willing and able and sing with me when the Spirit says do. What the Spirit says do, you gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord, you gotta do when the Spirit says do. It says do, Spirit says do.
caring listener is Donette Giltonen. You can speak with her after the service if you have any concerns or would simply like someone to talk to, and trust that whatever you share is always kept confidential. Please join hands if you wish. Changes abound around us, within us, between us. In our communities, our neighborhoods, and our beloved faith communities, changes abound. May we each find the balance point we need as we move through our ever-changing world, the balance between the old and the new, between the known and the unknown, between the familiar and perhaps bold and risky, that may be there waiting. We now extinguish our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts wherever we may go. Amen. Shalom. Salam. Namaste. And blessed be. Go now in peace. Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace. Go now in peace. Go now in peace. Go now in peace. Please join us for our social hour and get to know Pastor Rob.